Namaste and warm welcome in my short video presentation on JM Coetzee's novel Disgrace. I am Thir Bahadur Khadka, MPhil scholar at Nepal Open University, third semester. So this is a part of an assignment, and in this presentation, I am going to share my ideas on a tentative title that I have developed. The title that I developed for this presentation is Coetzee's Disgrace as a Replica of Post-Apartheid South Africa. So in my presentation, I'll be talking very briefly talking on JM Coetzee, the author of the novel, and then I'll be talking on the novel simply, and then the issue that I developed, and then the protagonist, the central character, David Lurie, particularly focusing on the position that he is placed in the novel or he is shown in the novel, and then I'll analyze the issue and then justify the point that I have raised, the issue I have raised, and then I'll conclude, and thereafter there is the works cited list. So the photo that we can see on the screen is the photo of JM Coetzee, whose full name is John Maxwell Coetzee. He was born in February 9, 1949 in Cape Town, that is South Africa, and later on he stayed in Australia, and thus we know this man is a South African Australian novelist. He has also written essays, and thus he is an essayist, a linguist, and of course a translator. One of the interesting thing about this man is that he got Nobel Prize in 2003, and in fact he is one of the most critically acclaimed and decorated authors in the English language. He has published various novels like Lands, In the Heart of the Country, Waiting for the Barbarians, and many more. And his novels are also they come under autobiographical novels, which are related to the novelist himself. Boyhood, Scenes from Provincial Life; Youth, Scenes from Provincial Life second; Summertime, Scenes from Provincial Life. These are some of his autobiographical novels. So Coetzee's Disgrace, this novel is here I have tried to analyze is a replica post-apartheid South Africa. That is, how does this novel represent the post-apartheid South Africa, particularly in the context of white Africans, South Africans. This novel got a Booker Prize in 1999, and that in my analysis, in my understanding, artistically places the protagonist, the central character David Lurie, in an ambivalent position, in which he neither fully accepts nor fully rejects the changes taken place in his life. So by making him remaining or standing in the threshold, sometimes appearing, accepting the changes that has taken place in his life, and sometimes rejecting them, and sometimes trying to go back to his past. He is placed in a kind of ambivalence of the changes, and my point is, by placing this character, this protagonist, in the ambivalent position of the changes, the novelist tries to represent fictionally, in the fictional manner, the historical ambivalence that the whites, during post-apartheid South African society went through. So the protagonist is very much interesting. That is, David Lurie is very much interesting. He is presented as a communication professor working at the University of South Africa. This man is in 52 years, of his age when he is introduced in the novel, and then he is also divorced twice, and he has a daughter. His daughter's name is Lucy Lurie, and despite being the father of a daughter, and the man in such let's say in his early 50s, as well as the professor, he very interestingly undergoes a series of romantic sexual games, often memorizing the romantic poets like Lord Byron, which ultimately earns him a disgraceful life. He gets a disgraceful life, from which point the title of the novel is also taken. And this man regularly visits a prostitute named Soraya. She is introduced as a prostitute, and okay, she also denies him, but he follows her. Okay, so Soraya denies later on. Soraya denies David Lurie, but he follows, and he tries to contact her, even if she is in her home. At this point, she says, "You are harassing me in my own house. I demand you will never phone me here again, never." So she asked David Lurie not to call her, not to disturb her. In other words, not to harass her. Thereafter, he turns towards a secretary of high school and seduces her. And finally, he develops his interest towards one of his students in the romantic poetry class. Her name is Melanie Isaac. She is 24 years old. He takes her in his room, seduces her, and regularly follows her. Okay. Uh, she has also another boyfriend. He also threatens David Lee not to do such things or not to follow her, and even her father, that is Melanie's father, also threatens David Lee not to do such things. However, he does not do so. That is, he tries to follow her and he tries to develop, or let's continue his relationship with Melanie Isaac. He knows that she is in fact an innocent girl. She is nervous and of course emotionally disturbed. Because of such disturbances in her life, she leaves to attend her class and even misses her terminal exam. And finally, when she became obliged to stand against David Lurie, okay, she cases a file against David Lurie for sexual harassment. Then a committee is set to investigate the case, and David is, however, given an opportunity to defend his case, trying to work out a compromise so that he could save his job. The members of the team, okay, who are of course his, let's say, staffs also, they ask him to tell something, to speak something in his case, so that okay, he can make a kind of compromise and save his job. But he resigns from his job, and he says that, okay, he says, I took advantage of my position vis-a-vis Mrs. Isaac, okay, Miss Isaac. So I was wrong and I regret it. And by presenting David in such a position, JM Coetzee tries to show that he seems is unaffected, who appears quite like a postmodernist, looking ahead instead of lamenting for what has happened. So what he did with Melanie and something like that. So then he goes to, after resigning from his job of the university, he goes to his daughter's farmhouse, that is Lucy's farmhouse in the village. He joins even the regular routine of the farmhouse, including visiting the market as well as looking after the dogs. He appears as if he has forgotten the past. He seems living in the present, and even okay, and he does not seem worrying about the uncertain future. The future, and that is more uncertain. So he seems like the postmodernist. So this case, or this point, that this position that David stands is interesting to look if we see it from the perspective postmodernism also. So to draw Tim Woods, particularly the book Beginning Postmodernism, what we can find is postmodernism does the same thing that modernism does, but in a celebrating tone instead of repenting. Exactly similar to the ethics, or let's say spirit of this line, David also does not seem lamenting, rather he seems celebrating what has happened in his life. So instead of lamenting the loss of the past, the fragmentation of existence, and the collapse of selfhood, postmodernism embraces these characteristics as a new form of social existence and behavior. David also seems inheriting the philosophy of postmodernism, that is celebrating the loss and continuing his existence, although he has been transformed to the farmhouse of his daughter in the village from the premises of the University of the South Africa. Okay, so this man anyway seems straightforward. Is he is okay? Is he as if he has understood that human life cannot be guided by the pre-established rules and the judged according to the determinant judgment, as Lyotard says. Even in the farmhouse, so even in the farmhouse, he sleeps with his daughter's servant, babes. And after sleeping, he says, "Let me not forget this day." By presenting David in this position, okay, so the writer shows that this man, okay, seems collecting his happiness from very minor things, very small things, instead of searching for the grand narrative or the meta narratives. Okay, so in a sense, he is different than a modernist in this point, because we know that modernist, they try to source the grand narrative or the meta narrative or the objective truth in their life. Okay, and they somehow lamented for what they lost because of the World War and something like that. But David seems a bit different here, and he seems closer to postmodernist. However, uh, the problem starts in that very, let's say, farmhouse in Lucy, particularly after the farmhouse got attacked by three boys from black community. When three boys attacked the farmhouse, David was also beaten. Lucy's dogs were killed, and she is also raped. Okay, she was raped by those boys, and his car was also taken away by the rapist. This event brings a great changes in his life. He failed to save his daughter from the rapist. He failed to even convince her to properly report the police. He tried to convince Lucy to report so that the criminals could be punished. However, she rejected his advice, and it made him realize how anarchy was ruling everywhere, how uncertain the future was, how fragmented the society was. Almost in the line that double beats in his very much famous poem, The Second Coming, and T.S. Eliot in the seminal book, The Wasteland, elaborates. He asks Lucy, "Do you hope you can expiate the crimes of the past by suffering in the present?" It shows that he tries to convince her so that somehow her past could be set into the right track, that is punish the rapist, punish the criminals. But Lucy avoids it. His failure makes David weeping. He weeps. He becomes more nostalgic, and even he remembers the past bygone days. Now he changes his position like that of a modernist from the position of postmodernist. Okay. He even goes on remembering Melanie Isaac and tries to ask forgiveness from her. He visits her house uh, in order to source the forgiveness, so that somehow he could get solace. Okay, he meets her family, although Melanie is not there in her family. He visits her father, her mother, and of course her sister. And getting to his knee, he touches his forehead to the floor and apologizes. Melanie's father says there is no any significance of asking for forgiveness, because the time has changes. That time has changed a lot. Despite this suggestion, David tries to ask for forgiveness. He even goes to the theatrical performances in order to meet Melanie, because Melanie is not in her house. However, even in that theater, Melanie's boyfriend confronts David Okay, anyway, David also okay seems lamenting okay, for what had happened in his life and something like that. He seems forgetting the spirit of let it be and or let anything happen. So his earlier position of postmodernism or postmodernist position again changes into the modernist one. Anyway, his ambivalence is in fact in a wider sense replicates the historical ambivalence that the whites in the post-apartheid South African society went through. This is the issue or the case that I have tried to link here. So my point is, although we need to have a further systematic study on the real position of the whites in post-apartheid South African society and its fictional representation in this novel Disgrace. So despite having this necessity of further investigation, my point is by surfacing the, let's say, by even the superficial observation, we can see David's position somehow representing the position of the whites in the then society, in the then society of South Africa in post-apartheid okay yes, time. So post-apartheid society that observed the end of white rule and the preferences to the black, who were also proving their worth almost in every field, and the blacks were obliged to accept the changes. However, they were confused, they were perplexed for losing their long-standing power position and rule. So anyway, they were also in confusion. They were also in dilemma, and the dilemma and confusion that the whites in post-apartheid South African society, okay, could be somehow seen in the case of David Lurie in this novel. So their ambivalence of acceptance is also similar to the ambivalent position of David Lurie in the novel. Lurie is trapped in the ambivalence because earlier he seems like postmodernist, but later on he seems like modernist. So he's in the threshold of acceptance, and the similar case or similar situation was there with the whites in the post-apartheid South African society. In this point, we can see Disgrace, the novel of the novel, is a representation of the whites' ambivalence of acceptance in post-apartheid South African society. In order to present this or let's say prepare this short video, I consulted some of the materials, some of the okay previously published scholarly publications, okay, scholarly articles, and of course the text, the novel Disgrace itself, which are listed here in the works cited list. Okay, so thank you very much, and namaste.